For those who don't know me, my name is Allison Parnes. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a veterinarian. I've been practicing, I don't know, 17 years maybe. I'm losing count. My years are going by fast. And I'm also certified in veterinary acupuncture. I'm married. I have two amazing children, boys that are 11 and almost 15. And so really how this came into my life was about 4 years ago. And prior to that, though, let me just preface it by saying in 2009, both of my kids were diagnosed with a genetic kidney disease. They were 2 and 5 at the time, and it hit us out of nowhere. And my oldest son was already pretty far gone. By the time we got the diagnosis, within 5 months, he was in kidney failure and on dialysis, and had a kidney transplant at 7 years old. And my youngest son, who was 2, we screened him just to make sure he was okay, and sure enough, he had the same disease. And they basically told us, this is a very aggressive kidney disease. There's absolutely nothing we can do to treat it. It's genetic. You're basically going to go through the same thing about the same age, so just prepare yourself. Probably around 5, 6 years old, your younger son's going to need a kidney transplant. So as a mom, that's very humbling and horrible, and I wasn't ready to accept that there was nothing I could do. And granted, there may not be drugs that could treat the disease, but already being versed in acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine and herbs, I began searching and was really looking for an answer for, something that could help support his body and support his kidneys and maybe slow the disease down, maybe give him more time. And so I consulted naturopaths around the country. I actually was working with 2 different naturopaths, one who specialized in kidney disease, who lived in Washington, D.C., and we had my son on a slew of herbs and supplements. And a 2-year-old trying to get down 10 different things multiple times a day. Let me tell you, it's not easy, trying to dissolve powders in applesauce. And it was horrible, but, we tried it. But the problem that I had with it was, all of the stuff we were giving him, it was very hard to find any real data, any real science. Most of the stories were anecdotal, and I really wanted to see studies. I really wanted to see changes in his lab work. And, so that's what I was looking for. And so we did this for 2 years, and I saw no changes in lab work. I saw no real studies. And it was crazy because 4 years ago, my best friend from vet school, Sheridan, who you guys probably know, called me, and she knew I did acupuncture, and she did too, and dogs. So she really called me to tell me about it for my patients. And she's like, Allison, this is something that's really helping my patients. And, we've been using all kinds of supplements and stuff, for years in our patients in acupuncture and rehab. She goes, this is something that's helping, my patients, that owners are noticing right away, that things that I haven't seen in, all these years that I've been using nutraceuticals and things like that. So she really called, she's like, and the crazy thing is, it's a human product. And she's like, it's got all these studies on PubMed. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool, because you don't usually see that. And so she, told me the name of it, and I, of course, immediately went to PubMed, and I start researching it, and I start seeing all these studies, and it's talking about anti-fibrotic, anti-inflammatory, anti-carcinogenic, and I just immediately connect the dots to my son, because this is what I've been looking for. His kidney disease was an inflammatory kidney disease that caused fibrosis, scarring of the kidney, and that's why they fail. And if you can slow down inflammation, or you can slow down fibrosis, you can potentially get longer life of the kidney. So I'm seeing these studies coming out of third-party universities, not funded by the company. And so I thought, what? This is 1 pill a day versus the 10 that I've been giving him 3 times a day. And actually at that time, I had stopped everything. I'd sort of given up that anything was really it just got to a point where I just thought, this isn't working. I had sort of resigned myself to the fact that we had tried and it had failed and there was nothing else we could do. And when she came to me with this, I thought, why not? It's 1 pill a day. That's doable. I can do that. We'll do a 30-day trial. Why not? So I decided to order it actually for my son first. And I had actually 3 guinea pigs. My son, I had a dog who we were contemplating euthanasia, who I'd been doing acupuncture on, and she came to me with like a last-ditch effort to kind of help this dog, and it was not going well. So we were probably going to put her down within a few weeks. And then my mom, who has had 5 joint replacements and chronic health issues for as long as I remember being alive. And I thought, you know what, if this makes a difference with any of them, then I'm going to be excited. And so, and I knew all the herbs, and I researched it. It's not like I threw my son on this without researching. I, first of all, trust Sheridan. But once I looked at the studies and the herbs and the fact that they were low dose, I thought there's no harm in trying it. And so we put him on it. I did a set. We had blood work done and everything before we started, and he was on nothing. Okay. And then 30 days after, we were going to repeat. Well, I started him on it, and I was so crazy anxious about it that I didn't even wait 30 days. I waited 14. And I got to know. Like, we got to do something. We got to check. And within 14 days of him being on it, the marker for his disease that we had never been able to touch with anything else we had tried had dropped by 50%, literally in half, to a level it hadn't been in 5 years. And so I thought it was a fluke. I couldn't believe it. And I didn't even really tell anybody except my mom and my husband. And I just thought, well, let's wait another 2 weeks, check it again, make sure it's not a fluke. We checked it again. It was lower. And long story short, it maintained at that level that we never anticipated for another 5 years. So he got an additional 5 years more than we ever thought he would get. So he did have a kidney transplant this last year, which is why my life has been crazy. However, to me, it is a huge success story because we got him bigger and stronger, and he recovered from that kidney transplant like, I'm telling you, not even a blink. This kid was back, and I had him on Protandim up to the day of his transplant, and I started him back within a few days after, and this kid has rebounded like nobody's business. My older son, who has had a transplant, we were really reluctant to put him on it because if you talk to anybody in the company or listen to people who, have been in the company, they say it's contraindicated with transplant. And I understand that. You don't want to mess around with transplant because they're on heavy duty drugs that can interact with many things, including food. And the last thing you want to do is risk rejection of an organ. Okay. I did not take this lightly, especially with my older son, because he had been already years out, 5 years out, I think, with his transplant when I learned about Protandim, and, my whole family was taking it. Mind you, the dog patient of mine, who we were getting close to having to euthanize, in 6 weeks made such an incredible recovery. She was doing little jumpy spins in the backyard. The owner was sending me videos of this on my phone, freaking out, going, I don't know what you're doing or what this stuff is, but this is like amazing. This dog lived another year of good quality of life. My mother has had amazing results with it and is still having amazing results with it. That is still, after 4 years, she's seeing things change. So, it doesn't always happen in 30 days, and hopefully we'll have time to get to that point, because I really want to talk about how to address people who say, within the first 30 days, oh, I don't notice a difference, or who stop their auto ships or whatever. We need to educate these people. We need to explain what this is, how powerful this is. And the reason I'm here, you guys, and what I said in my post, is that my belief in this product is so freaking strong. I cannot not be here, right? I have to tell everybody I know about it. I don't care what you do with that information. That's up to you. But if I know you have something going on and I don't share it with you, I'm not going to be able to sleep. It's going to be on me. And I believe in this so much that there's no way I could ever leave. And so Sam talked last week about those 4 pillars of belief. And if you're not having success, why is that? And maybe it's because, there's a deficiency somewhere in those 4 pillars of belief. Either it's the product or the company or the business or yourself. But for me, what brought me in was the belief in the product. And yes, I did see a result right away with my son. But some people don't see results right away, and that can be hard, and that can diminish your belief. And I want to really address that. And so hopefully, we'll have time to do it. But really, I think, for me, it was seeing the difference in my son got me in, seeing the difference in my patient, my mom. And, so once I got in, I was not really about the business. I had never done network marketing in my life. Didn't feel like I was a salesperson. In fact, Sheridan and I got in a fight about this because I felt like she was pushing the business on me. And in fact, my first Elite Academy was in Long Beach. I wasn't even a distributor yet. She was just like, we happened to be out there getting our veterinary license, and she's like, you've got to come to this thing with me. And I was just like, I don't know, this just seems weird. And I went, and I just felt like it was like some sort of weird cult. And I just was not into it, whatsoever. And in fact, I got really mad at her, and I left Long Beach without even saying goodbye. And I got back to Atlanta, and I just thought, I'm pissed at her. And so she actually called me, and she's like, you know what, Alisan, if you're not, and the thing is, I was already a believer in the product. That's what's so funny. I was already a hardcore believer in the product because I had seen what it did. But the business to me, because I was so close to it, and I felt like, I don't know, there's stigma, like so many people have. I was just so close to it that I couldn't even, I was mad. And so she took it away from me. She didn't even know what she was doing, but she took it away. It's like the classic, like Hallmark, anybody in training that you feel like you're, are running away from you, take it away. That's exactly what she did. She took it away. She goes, Alisan, I love you. You're my best friend. I thought you would be into this. I thought we could have fun, make a lot of money together, helping a lot of people and animals. But if you're not into it, it's okay. I will never mention it again. I swear to you, when she said that to me, it stuck with me. And I'm like, what if she's right? What if she's right? Like, I know we're going to be customers, but what if she's right that this is so huge? And what if she is a millionaire before me? I was like, no, that can't happen. And so it was so funny, like that whole competitive streak, I'm like, okay, no, I'm in. And so I didn't even tell her, actually, when she took it away from me, literally that night, I signed up as a distributor. I didn't even tell her I was going to. And so she called me the next day and was like, what? So she goes, I didn't even know what I was doing. Like later we joke about it. She's like, that's like the classic, like, professional thing, you take it away. So anyway, that worked with me in terms of the business. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Like, if your best friend shoots you down, leaves without saying goodbye to you, acts like they never want to talk to you again, don't give up, because I needed this, and I didn't know how bad I needed this, but I will tell you, I was praying for something, because when my oldest son had his transplant, I was working full-time. My husband was working full-time. We didn't have time to take off to, for an extended period to recover my son and be there with him for a long time. I had to go back to work. In fact, I was in the hospital. My husband donated a kidney. My son had just gotten a transplant, and I was in the hospital running between 2 different hospitals to see my husband and my son. My boss was calling me, asking me about this patient, that patient, this client. When are you coming back? We're short-staffed. I mean, the stress level was off the roof, and I didn't, I couldn't tell him, hey, screw you. This is like, I need to be with my family because I had to go back to work and I had to pay the bills. And I don't know how I did that. I ended up having to go back to work. My son, thank God, recovered, and I don't even remember who all helped me. I mean, it was just one of those, like, the village helped me with him. But I just remember thinking to myself, I never want to be in this situation where I have to choose between my family and work ever again. And I knew eventually Donovan would be in the same situation. And I think, those few years, I felt like I needed to figure something out. I didn't want to be working for a boss. I didn't want to own my own clinic, though, either, because that requires so much time and effort. I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to be able to be there for my kids. And so I tried some different things. I never thought LifeVantage would be the answer for me. But when I finally accepted this and knew that I was so passionate about what this was and how it could help people, I began to really delve into the business of it. And what's happened over the last 4 years for me is it's essentially replaced my part-time veterinary income. I have been able to literally walk away. I work 1 day a week, a half day a week right now because I choose to, not because I have to, but I need to get out of the house. And I also need to just keep my skills up. But I have been, my son, when he had his transplant last year, I was able to walk away from work because I had built something over the last 4 years of residual income. So I was able to tell my boss, hey, I got to go. I don't know when I'll be back. And I got paid every month from LifeVantage, and my check went up many months when I was in the hospital and not working the business. And that was when my passion for network marketing became almost or as big as the product, because I saw what it can do for families. And to allow me to be home, and I've homeschooled my kids all last year, gotten my son through his surgery, through his transplant, through all of his emotional trauma. I was there. That was something I wasn't able to do with my older son. So that's what the business has done for us and how it's changed our lives. And holy moly, I'm not even going to get to the point of what I wanted to do about customers. So I'm doing another call on December 10th. So I'm going to save what do you do when people say, I don't feel anything, right, after 30 days, or I don't have a story. I just want to say, let me tell you, it's all about education. It's all about setting the right expectations and understanding what this product is doing, because I don't care if you don't feel it, it's working. It's working in your cells. And I've got some pretty incredible validation that I want to share with you guys, and also some really great tools that I think you can share with new customers in terms of what to expect, and also personal assessments that don't cross into compliance issues where they can start to assess. In fact, let me just share it real quick. So this is something I think Sheridan, I don't know, one of our distributors created this, which I think is great to send to new PCs, because we need to set up the right expectations for what to expect on First Tandem, right? It's not going to be necessarily an overnight change. This is not a drug, it's not Tylenol. Okay, this is activating our genes to clean up our body, right? And to detoxify our body. It's going to take time. And so I like to send this to people because we need to know this is not something you may feel right away. It's not a medication. It may take 30 to 90 days. It actually could take 4 to 6 months. If people want to try, and I put that in quotes, I say 4 to 6 months, or for every decade old you are, because that's how long it can take sometimes. And you may feel nothing. For example, I went on Protandim when I put my son on it. I didn't have the miracle story that my son had, right? But I know what's working in my body. I wasn't sick like he was. I know what's in my family genome. I know my mom has had 5 joint replacements and rheumatoid arthritis. Do I want to slow down the risk factors for those things developing in my body? Do I want to affect those bad genes that could potentially cause me to have those problems? Heck yeah, I do. Am I going to wake up and feel like I can run a marathon? No, why would you expect that? And sometimes I think we work the product up so much in people's minds because of the amazing stories that we hear, that we give people these false expectations. So it's really important to set the right expectations. It can take time. You may not feel anything, but it's working in your cells. You don't feel high cholesterol. You don't feel cancer cells when they're growing in your body until it's too late. Okay, so just like that, you don't feel oxidative stress at all until it's caused a disease process. So if we can reduce oxidative stress, you just have to connect those dots. And so for me, I can't say, oh yeah, I felt like blah, blah, blah the next day, but am I going to stop taking this? Heck no, I'm not going to stop taking this. I know what it's doing. So it's really important to just educate people, explain to them what it's been shown. I like these points here because it's shown to improve blood circulation. You may notice increased energy, more concentration, better sleep, reduced brain fog, less stress, increased libido. Hey, it has anti-inflammatory properties, so you may experience less swelling or pain. Detoxification, so you might have some GI things going on. So I like that it just explains this. So I send this and recommend this to my team to send to every new customer. Also, this is a personal evaluation for new customers. And what I love about this is this sets up a year-long journey with Protandim, not a 30-day journey, okay? This is, hey, let's assess the state of our body. Month 1, month 3, month 6, and month 12, and let's see where we are after a year being on this product. And I like it because it's not talking about diseases. It's talking about things that a lot of people deal with: energy levels, sleep quality, dreams, aches, pain, stiffness, mood, anxiety, headaches, migraines. I mean, you guys, there's so many times that in stories that people look back and go, oh my gosh, I haven't had a migraine in 6 months. I didn't even realize how different this was, right? If you are tracking, it's just like in your business. If you're tracking it, or your weight, if you're on a weight loss journey, sometimes if you're not tracking it, you're just looking at the day-to-day, you don't see the big changes that are happening. But if you go back 3 months or 6 months, you're going to see big changes. And so I think just this is a great sort of thing to send. This is the other half of the page, but you're talking about skin and bloating and just your overall well-being, your hair, nail growth. I mean, holy moly, like that's a huge deal. Like my nails and hair, just since I've been on Protandim, it's been crazy, like how much that's changed. So things that people would never think about. We oftentimes we hear about a person that's having a health issue, we're like, oh, they need Protandim because of this XYZ problem. And I see this in dogs, right? And patients is like, I want to put them on it for their arthritis or their joint pain. And then all of a sudden the clients are telling me, oh my gosh, like their allergies are so much better. Or, their skin coat, their hair coat, everything's so much better. So you never know how it's going to affect an individual. And the only way to know is to try it and give it enough time. So I know I'm probably over. I wanted to take questions. I don't know, you guys are welcome to go, but I'm happy to stay around if anybody has any questions they want to ask. And I'm going to unshare my screen real quick.
Yeah, so, I'm sure somebody has a question, and if someone needs to hop off, they can.
Thank you, Erin.
Let's see here. Someone have a question?
Thank you, Allison. I was just wondering if we can get a PDF of that, pretty please.
Yeah, you're on my Facebook group, the Activated Life community. And if you go into files, they're in there. So you can just download it from the files, both of those, what to expect and the assessment.
Wonderful, thank you.
And Carrie, I know there's probably people on here that aren't on that group. If you don't mind forwarding that on to one of us so we can put it on the other threads, that'd be awesome.
Yes, all you guys you're welcome to it. It's for distributors, prospects, customers, whoever. It's similar to the, some of the other, what is it? PB, oh gosh, PBL, PB. Anyway, those, the customer group. But I post a lot of studies and a lot of science, a lot of talks with doctors and things like that. So you guys are welcome to plug into that and also add your prospects as well. It's open to do that.
I have a question. I know you said you took a while to decide for your oldest son, just because of the advice that we're given to be extra cautious with transplant patients. And obviously with it being your son, you were probably even more concerned and wanting to obviously just do everything that would be in his best interest. So in deciding to move forward with putting him on Protandim, how did you go about doing that? And how would you advise somebody in a similar situation to proceed in that situation? Ultimately, it's their decision.
Thank you, Melody. You just brought me back to my lost train of thought earlier in the call. I was planning on going into that and I completely got derailed. So thank you for bringing me back there. Yes, that is a huge deal because I get a lot of questions about that. And again, like I said, it wasn't something I took lightly, and I researched it. I talked with our transplant team for 7 months about getting my older son on it. And it wasn't I was pushing for it necessarily. I really wanted their input. I wanted them to research themselves. And so I kept talking to them about NRF2 and not necessarily Protandim, but I was like, look, this is something that I am curious about. It's helped my younger son. My husband and I are on it. And I felt bad, really, because my older son, Zion, was like, well, if this stuff is so great, why can't I be on it, right? And I'm like, well, honey, we can't just do that. We got to get the approval from the doctors, blah, blah, blah. Well, the doctors were just dismissive about it. And it really irritated me because I was becoming more and more educated. And what really got me is I'm part of a LifeVantage doctor or health professionals group. And I actually met a nurse who had a kidney transplant. She had it for 15 years. Well, she went on Protandim, I think 5 years prior without even talking to her doctors. And I was like, whoa, you've had a kidney transplant. You're on Protandim. How are you doing? And she's like, I've been on it. I didn't even know like it was even an issue. And I didn't even ask my doctor. She goes, but my blood work, everything has been awesome with me. I'm not going off of it. And then there were a couple of other people's stories that I heard about other transplant patients. So I started to feel more comfortable at that point because I knew they were on the same drugs that my son was on. It had not interfered with their drugs. And, and that's what they say. Protandim has no known drug interactions and they're low dose herbs. And so I was starting to get more confidence and more determination as to I want my son on this. And the real kicker for me was we went into Emory, which is a teaching hospital, so they're always doing research. And they were actually doing a cardiovascular study on transplant patients. And they came in and asked me if they could, Zion could participate in the study. And I said, sure, what's it about? And they told me, well, transplant patients are at 50% higher risk for heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. And, we're trying to assess early markers for heart disease in our transplant patients that are pediatric patients. And I was like, well, what are you looking at? What are you measuring? And they just blew me off, and they didn't know I had any medical background. And anyway, what were they measuring? T-bars. Okay. They were measuring T-bars, and they were measuring other lipid peroxidase measurements. And I was like, what? And so I just was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this is it. This is I know something that can reduce this by 40%. They're basically telling me my kid has a 50% higher risk rate for heart disease. He's going on this. So I became super determined. So I started scouring the internet, and I actually came across an article from the transplant, it was the annual transplant congress on NRF2 activation in transplant patients. They were looking at drugs. And they were talking about NRF2 activation could actually help the ischemic damage when a kidney is taken out of a donor and put into a recipient, that loss of blood flow. If you NRF2 activate, how that could actually help the health of the kidney. And potentially they were looking at it for rejection, to help with rejection issues. So I took that article And I went armed and I just said, Dr. blah, 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 here's an article. I go, I want to put my son on this, and I want you to tell me what monitoring you would like. And honestly, they just did not argue with me. They just said, well, we want you to bring him in for weekly labs for the first month, and as long as it doesn't interact with his drugs, that's fine. So I asked my son, I go, are you cool with coming in for weekly labs? He's like, yeah. I was like, all right, we'll do it for the first month. No problems at all with his drug levels. The one thing that happened within the first week is for 5 years, this child had had diarrhea every single day of his life because of his medication. And we had him worked up. We had him, with GI, everything, thinking it was viral, this and that. It turned out to be side effects from medication. Within 1 week on Protandim, he had his first solid stool. He yelled from upstairs, I had a solid. We all ran up and had a poopy party. We were like screaming. It was honestly life-changing for him. I would like hear it in the morning. Like, that's how bad it was. He would 5 a.m. every morning, I would hear it. And I would be cleaning toilets every day. And this child has no more diarrhea. And that was the craziest thing for me, is just like, I put him on it for prevention. Yeah. Like, I never expected any results. And that's why I say you don't know what it's going to do, and for people who expect an overnight change, you can't. Sometimes I'm really reluctant to tell the stories of my kids in that way, because I feel like if they don't see it in the first week or the first month or whatever, they're just going to give up. And that's not the case. And so, but for us, that's what I experienced. And that's why I'm still here, you guys. Like, I will never stop telling people about this. And for transplant patients, I always say, you need to talk to your doctors. But I will tell you, I have many friends in the kidney world, a lot of moms with kids with transplants, a lot of them that are distributors now, who have their kids on it. In fact, our transplant nurse, our coordinator for our children's hospital, who adopted a daughter with a kidney transplant, has her daughter on it, and she's on it, and her whole family's on it. So I know enough transplant patients at this point to where I'm pretty confident to say that in most situations it's not going to be a problem. But, it is something that I don't ever want to, you never want to 100% guarantee anything.
Thank you for sharing. That's just a beautiful story. Very touching.
Well, thank you guys. I'm sorry to blab on so long, but I'm excited to be able to share with y'all again soon.
Thank you, Allison. That was so good.